Some stories leave marks on the heart that never truly fade. Even when they end, their echoes remain. Two men live in the shadows, carrying burdens too heavy for words. When a kidnapped girl enters their lives, their world is shaken in ways they never expected. Hello everyone, welcome to Screenville. Today, we're diving into the Korean film Voice of Silence, a compelling tale of silent struggles, fragile bonds, and the weight of life's toughest choices. The story begins by showing two egg sellers named Jun and Minho. Jun is lame, and Minho is mute. They sell eggs from a van. At the end of the day, they leave behind a serene village and arrive at a secluded house. There, they change their clothes and prepare for a special task. Though they appear to be simple egg sellers, their real work is far darker. They are experts in discreetly handling bodies. At that moment, a person is seen hanging, injured. Shortly after, the notorious gangster Kim arrives. Outside, Minho carefully cooks ramen for him. Then, he sits in Kim's car and lights a cigarette, as if trying to act like Kim. Jun warns him that it's not good to dream of a fortune while lying on a torn quilt. They should just do the job they came for and leave. When they go inside, they see the person has already passed. Jun and his partner get to work. In reality, they are experts at making evidence disappear. Kim tells Jun about another special job. They need to look after someone for a few days. Jun initially refuses, but the lure of a large sum of money finally makes him agree. Kim gives them some money as a tip. Afterwards, they take the departed to a deep forest. Jun was a devout Christian. He prays for the peace of the departed soul and lays them to rest. After finishing the work, they head home. Minho's house was deep inside the village, so Jun drops him off near a tree on the way. An elderly woman was selling vegetables there. Minho gives her a few eggs and sets off towards his house on his bicycle. By then, evening had turned to night. Returning home, Minho falls asleep. The next day, Jun and Minho go to a hotel for that special job. Minho brings a strong bat with him. When they open the designated room, they find it's actually a children's playroom. At first, they are confused. Just then, a little girl wearing a rabbit mask emerges from behind the sofa. Both are stunned. They hadn't expected they would have to look after such a young girl. Jun calls Kim and finds out this girl was taken for a ransom. Actually, they were supposed to take her younger brother, but they took the girl by mistake. Because she is a girl, her father is negotiating the ransom. Jun says angrily, "Whether it's a girl or a boy, everyone is equally important. What kind of parents are these?" They start arguing about where to keep the girl for 2 days. There are always people coming and going at Jun's place. So he tells Minho to take the girl to his secluded house. Minho initially refuses, but Jun reminds him of the old days and emotionally persuades him. Jun had raised Minho since they were young. Hearing these emotional words, Minho finally agrees. Then they set off with the girl. Her name is Jo-hee. She asks, "Will I be safe?" Jun says he is a friend of her father. Her father has some of his things. Once her father gives them back, she can leave. Then Jo-hee exclaims, "Are you going to take money from my dad?" Meaning she understands perfectly well that she has been taken. Jun drops them off at the place where Minho parks his bicycle. Putting Jo-hee on the bicycle, Minho starts heading towards his house. On the way, they meet that elderly woman. Jo-hee runs and hugs her. However, the old woman thinks this girl might be Minho's little sister, so she tells her to calm down and go with Minho. Then Minho sets off again with Jo-hee. This time, however, he is forced to tie her securely to himself. Minho's house was spooky, and his room was like a pile of junk. There, Jo-hee sees another girl who was untidy and younger than Jo-hee. Jo-hee thinks she has also been taken, but talking to her, she finds out this is Minho's little sister. Her name is Moon. Before she can ask more questions, Minho comes and lies down in front of the door. It seems Moon sleeps while holding her brother like a pillow. A little later, Minho looks back to see what Jo-hee is doing. Everything is fine. Jo-hee is just sitting there, watching them. The next day, Jo-hee wakes up, goes outside, and sees Minho washing his face and hands. Seizing the opportunity, Jo-hee goes and wakes Moon up, asking, "Is that boy really your brother?" Moon says, "Yes." Meanwhile, Jun messages Minho, telling them they need to be at the hideout by 11 a.m. There's a new job. He says to lock Jo-hee in the house. But Minho cannot lock up his sister, so he takes Jo-hee with him. This time, their boss Kim is the one who has been left hanging. injured. Minho gives him a slap. He also takes Kim's coat. It turns out Kim also had a boss above him. Kim used to take many contracts alone without informing that boss. That's why this happened to him. He had also taken Jo-hee without informing them. So the boss of that gang tells Jun, "Our gang had no part in this. Take her back to where you found her." Hearing this, Jun and Minho become very tense. Afterwards, they get to work on handling the situation. Jo-hee was sitting right there. But she isn't scared by what she sees. In fact, she willingly helps with the final arrangements. Afterwards, Jun and the others return to the hotel. They meet the men who had taken Jo-hee on Kim's orders. Jun tells them, "We can't keep Jo-hee, you take her." But from their words, he realizes they are involved in human trafficking. They could sell Jo-hee. The men tell them, "You keep her with you. We'll get the ransom from her father and split it." Forced, Jun and Minho agree. To get a letter written to Jo-hee's father, Minho goes to a shop. He buys a coloring pencil and a notebook and goes home. Jo-hee writes a message requesting a ransom of 200,000 won for her release. Moon asks what ransom means. Jo-hee then explains, "Bad people took me. They will let me go if they get money. That's called a ransom." Later, when Moon starts drawing on the floor with the color pencil, Jo-hee tells her, "Draw on the paper. Otherwise, your brother will be upset." The next day, Minho gives the letter to those men so they can send it to Jo-hee's father. At night, Minho comes home with food. Jo-hee sets up a small table in the middle and tells Moon, "We'll eat together when your brother starts. Let me teach you how to fold clothes." Saying this, they start cleaning the room. When Minho comes back after freshening up, he sees the entire room has changed. Jo-hee and his sister had cleaned and organized the room, making it almost spotless. Moon was restless for the food. Jo-hee tells her, "We will eat after your brother starts eating." She is teaching her manners. Jo-hee feeds Moon while eating her own food as if she were her big sister. Minho feels very good about this. At night, Jo-hee woke Minho up and said she needed to use the toilet. Minho lit a flashlight and took her there. To let her know he was waiting outside, he clapped his hands. 2 days passed like this, but there was no response from Jo-hee's father. Every morning, Minho would take her with him. They would return home in the evening after finishing their work. It seemed Jo-hee had grown close to these people. She helped with housework, washed clothes, and played with Moon. They were actually having a pretty good time. Another 4 days went by. No answer came from Jo-hee's home. Jun and Minho came up with a new plan. One day, Jun came to Minho's house. He brought ice cream and a camera. He wanted to take a picture of Jo-hee to pressure her father, but Minho didn't know how to use the camera, so Jo-hee herself taught him how to use it. Then Jun took her picture. Looking at Jo-hee, one wouldn't even think she had been taken. Jun said, "Make your face a little sad." Then he prepared to send the picture to her father. Just then, the thugs called and said Jo-hee's father had agreed to pay the ransom. However, they told Jun to go and collect the money. This made him very angry, but he had no other option. He told Minho, "If I don't call by tomorrow afternoon, it means Jo-hee's father didn't pay. Then you will take Jo-hee to this address." That's what those thugs said. The next day, Jun went to get the money. Jo-hee's father left the bag of money in a spot and left. Jun secretly took the bag and started to leave. However, he was suffering from intense panic. He felt like someone was following him, but it was his imagination. Out of fear, he had a severe panic attack. He fell from the stairs and was seriously injured. Somehow, he got up and sat on the steps holding the bag, but he could not survive. He passed away. Meanwhile, after waiting for a long time with no word from Jun, Minho decided to take Jo-hee to the address he was given. He dressed Jo-hee in her school uniform and set off on his bicycle. When he arrived, he saw a man giving a bath to a young boy. There were many other small children there. In reality, this man and his wife were involved in human trafficking. Without a doubt, they would sell Jo-hee. Jo-hee looked at Minho with pleading eyes, but he hardened his heart, left Jo-hee there, and started to leave. However, he kept looking back. Jo-hee was still watching him with pained eyes. As soon as Minho got home, Moon asked, "Where is my big sister?" Minho didn't answer and sat in his room, feeling hopeless. Suddenly, his conscience awoke. He realized he had made a terrible mistake. Then he got on his bicycle and rushed off like a madman. The trafficker was loading the children into a van. Minho blocked its path. He jumped into the vehicle and a struggle began. With great effort, he managed to push the man out of the van. Then, he loaded his bicycle into the van and started driving toward the city. He parked the van in a market area and set off for home with Jo-hee. She had been sedated, which was causing her to feel very unwell. Minho left her at home and went to the pharmacy to get medicine. Meanwhile, Moon said to Jo-hee, "Come on, let's play." Jo-hee replied, "The door is locked. How can we play?" Then Moon showed her that the door was actually open. Jo-hee came outside and said to Moon, "Then let's play hide and seek." She told Moon to start counting and then ran away. A little later, Minho returned home and found Jo-hee was gone. He grabbed a flashlight and began searching for her frantically. Meanwhile, we see Jo-hee asking a man for help, but sensing his bad intentions, she ran away again. While searching, Minho and Jo-hee finally found each other in a spot. Seeing the injury on Jo-hee's foot, Minho was deeply upset. This time, however, Jo-hee did not try to run. Instead, she took his hand and asked to go home. By then, an intoxicated man had reported to a female police officer, saying a girl in a school uniform had asked for help. The officer, after searching around, arrived at Minho's house. Minho was standing in front of the toilet, clapping his hands, meaning Jo-hee was inside. The officer became a little suspicious. Just then, Jo-hee came out. An intense struggle then began between Minho and the officer. At one point, the officer accidentally hit her head and became completely still. Minho began to tremble with fear, but Jo-hee remained perfectly calm. She signaled that they should cover the situation. Together, they quickly cover the officer nearby, making sure her face remains visible. This entire event left Minho extremely worried. He couldn't sleep all night. The next day, two thugs, wanting money, met with the trafficker. They learned about the previous day's events and then came to the village looking for Minho. They got a general idea of where Minho's house was from an elderly woman sitting by the road. Meanwhile, Minho realized he couldn't hide Jo-hee for much longer. His eyes fell on Jo-hee's school notebook. He decided he would take Jo-hee back to her school, so he told Jo-hee to get ready. He also puts on the coat that had been taken from Kim. Soon after the two of them left, leaving Moon asleep, the thugs arrived at Minho's house. They came inside and found only Minho's little sister there. Not finding Jo-hee, they decided to take the little girl instead. They tempted Moon with candy, and she agreed to go with them. However, as they were leaving, they noticed the police officer's situation in the yard. She was moving her hand. The two men uncovered her. When they saw she was a police officer, they got scared and quickly left, abandoning Moon. Moon simply sat in front of the officer and ate her candy. Meanwhile, after a long journey, Minho arrived at the school with Jo-hee. When Jo-hee saw her class teacher, she couldn't hold back her emotions. But by now, Minho had spent so much time with her that he had started to care for her like a little sister. He didn't want to let go of her hand. But Jo-hee pulled her hand away, ran, and hugged her teacher. The teacher then asked, "Who is this man?" Jo-hee then shocked everyone by saying, "He is the one who took me." Hearing this felt like the sky was falling on Minho. Without a moment's delay, he started running desperately to save himself. He ran and ran, tears streaming from his eyes. He was thinking, what would he tell his little sister about Jo-hee when he got home? And with this heartbreaking emotional scene and countless unanswered questions, the story comes to an end. The movie had an open ending. Whether Minho will be caught by the police or live the rest of his life peacefully with his little sister is left to the viewer's imagination. Although, it's easy to guess that the fate of a mute man like him may not be particularly bright. In truth, Jo-hee had been trying to escape from the very beginning but never found the right opportunity. The first time she was at Minho's house, she saw that he locked the door and took her with him to work, always keeping an eye on her. Remember the night she went to the toilet? She actually wanted to take the mobile phone, but Minho woke up, so she used the toilet as an excuse. Jo-hee is a very intelligent girl. She can remain calm even in serious situations. To avoid any mistreatment, she behaved well with them all this time. From my perspective, this story is as much about survival as it is about human connection. Minho's silent care and Jo-hee's resilience create a fragile bond, one that blurs the line between captivity and protection. It makes us question morality, trust, and the unexpected ways people can impact each other's lives. Even in a story filled with tension, the subtle humanity of their relationship leaves a lasting impression. This is completely my analysis. Please don't forget to share what you think. Thank you for watching this emotional story unfold. Don't forget to subscribe to Screenville for more heartfelt movie explanations and stay tuned for the next journey.